Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Marvelous Masonic Muggles.
Marvelous Masonic Muggles.
And so we are going to pick right back up where we left off. We have been talking about what is domestic violence? What does that entail? What does that umbrella look like? Everything under the umbrella, subcategories, how to recognize physical signs, psychological signs, emotional, verbal. We also had very amazing questions that were asked by you, LaTresha, from that website that were very informative. If you find yourself in these situations or you're a survivor. And so let's just jump into it, okay?
Yeah.
So
let's go.
Were you already going to talk about gaslighting?
No, I was letting you take the reins on that one.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
I mean, that was part of the power and control wheel.
Yes.
That I was looking at.
So there are different wills. They're called power and control wills, and they have different wills for different types of, whether it's like systematic abuse, it could be within a community, within a like LGBTQ like, I mean, there's so many different types, military, police, categories, yes. There's so many different categories that make up the power and control wills, and for each of them, they look different. And so today we are going to in this conversation talking about gaslighting, and then we'll get into coercive control and things like that later on, and other tactics such as love bombing, triangulation, what is flying monkeys, what is hovering, however you say it, is a vacuum. It sucks you in dry. Yeah. So let's talk about gaslighting. So gaslighting is a form of emotional abuse. Narcissists are not the only people that use these techniques, but they are masters of them. The term was coined from a movie in 1944 called Gaslight. This is a common tactic in domestic abuse, denying and distorting a victim's reality and emotions, making them feel crazy. It's common to fall for this behavior if you were gaslighted growing up, if you have fears of abandonment or losing a relationship. So you can be gaslighted as a child if you grew up in a very dysfunctional household, maybe had a narcissist as a parent, and been gaslighted about your experiences as a child. And so let's talk about the methods of gaslighting. So denial. This triggers self-doubt in victims when the narcissist denies conversations or events that happen. The more they are able to distract their victims with self-doubt, the victim has to accept reality. Common phrases are, "I never said that," or "You're making things up." Countering, which is AKA contradicting. When you bring up a situation, they may tell you that you don't have a good memory or you're always forgetting things. Are you sure that happened? And I feel like, this happens particularly with neurodivergent people that are in relationships and may not even know that they're neurodivergent, because like when you have ADHD, like that is something that we struggle with in general. And so when you also are navigating through the lenses of trauma and your nervous system that's all it's known as trauma, it becomes easier for abusers to play on that, like, oh, you're just so forgetful anyways. Like, I forget shit all the time. Like, I forget why I'm at the store, what I came to the store for. I'll make a list, forget half of the things that I came to get to the store, like,
yeah,
it happens all the time. And so it's easy for them to use that as a term to further abuse and gaslight and distort your reality to make you feel like, well, dang, like, did that really happen? Because I do forget things, Withholding. This is refusing to engage in a conversation or topic that is brought up. Many times a narcissist may even pretend to leave the relationship if the topic is brought up. So the victim over time starts to silence themselves out of fear of abandonment. Children of this behavior, it is extremely traumatic for them to be fearful of losing appearance losing a parent's love and safety, and as adults they may be afraid to ask for what they need. I don't know what you're talking about. And so, like, kind of how we talked about, you know, with my older girls, and like that dynamic with, you know, their grandmother and their mother and then their dad, like this whole toxic family dynamic. It's very dysfunctional, it's very chaotic, the highs and lows, the push and pull dynamic. And so the fear of needing something, well, I'm afraid to ask my mom for this because I'm afraid that she'll guilt me, or, you know, I'm afraid to ask my dad for this because where's your money, or whatever. And you become afraid to have needs. And if you're raised by a parent that was a narcissist as a child, that is how empaths get created, is like by tuning. You are trained to tune into your parents' emotional well-being and needs and be responsible for that. And so then you learn early on that it's not okay to have needs, and that I'm an inconvenience if I have needs. And so it's easier for me to get by in these relationships if I just don't ask for anything and if I don't have needs, because that makes me an easy child. I don't have needs. You know, well, she doesn't, she's just so easy. She doesn't. So children learn very early on that having needs is not okay, because if they do, their needs are often going to be shamed or guilted or not even met. You know, so diversion, this is any attempt to take attention off of their own behavior. They will often project their behavior onto you or talk about your past behavior, because anything you can and say will be used against you, and shame you to take the attention off of theirs. This is especially common when the abuser is unfaithful and it is brought to the light. They will often use self-pity and try to bring up difficulties in their life to get you to feel sorry for them and excuse their behavior. Trivializing, aka minimizing, belittling you, denying your feelings. They can use situations like, I work all day and provide, and you're really talking about this right now. They can say things like, stop being so petty. You're over exaggerating. You're so sensitive. I'm sorry you choose to feel that way. Why can't you take a joke? Gaslighting by proxy. This is when an abuser uses other people, such as close friends or family, to enable their behavior. So this is where like gaslighting is like magnified by these enablers surrounding the narcissist, which the majority of them are also narcissistic. They may be a parent of the narcissist that will also gaslight you and minimize issues in the relationship. His mother was a prime example of that. Gaslighting by tribe is very communal, so people surrounding you gaslight you if you dare to question their leader. This is having like a communal narcissist, which is someone that is in a very high position of power. Like you look at Trump for an example. That's a very common example. This is very common in the military. Lower ranking employees may be coerced to not speak out against abusive behavior against a higher up, or take the blame for something they didn't do to protect someone in a position of superiority. Eventually, this behavior causes the victim to gaslight themselves. This further causes the victim to be entrapped, and that you internalize that, and victims will gaslight themselves and distort their own reality because that is what they've been told, that didn't really happen. And so then you learn to make excuses for their behavior, or they're just having a bad day, or their childhood and this happened, and yada yada. Symptoms of gaslighting: chronic apologizing to the abuser, second guessing yourself and your reality, recording events because you don't trust your own judgment, making excuses for the abuser's behavior, anxiety and depression and general confusion, withdrawn and confused, hard time making simple decisions. When you recognize that this is happening, do not become defensive and try to further explain yourself, because that's what they want. They want you to have an emotional reaction, and they want you to have to defend yourself, because if they can get you to try to defend yourself over something that they've accused you of, like, that is what keeps these circulatory conversations going, and they want to exhaust you mentally and physically. So, yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, and don't try to further explain yourself. It just makes you more vulnerable to further manipulation. Because when you are emotional and you get emotionally aroused, you will say things in those emotional states because you are so defensive, because you're trying to protect yourself and you're defending yourself because you're like, no, like I didn't say that, like that didn't happen or whatever. So anything that you can and say will be used against you. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they will twist everything you fucking said. And that's why like I started recording our conversations, because I'm like, that is not what I said. And then you just said this last week and now you're saying something completely different. Like,
yeah,
you know, like that's not happening.
And they love, like, it doesn't matter, like, you can say butterflies are my favorite insect, and then the next time y'all have a conversation, it can be, well, you said you hated bees.
Something so simple.
And it's like, when did I say that? Well, whenever you were talking about how much you loved butterflies.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, but wait a minute, like, I didn't say that. Yeah, but you know you don't have a good memory, but you did say that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe I didn't say that.
I had an example with that in the spider. I
This
used to
is
be
an
like,
example that hasn't happened.
yes, deathly afraid of spiders.
That specific instance.
For a while, and then I really started like having an infatuation and like love spiders, and I was like trying to rescue them if we had one in the house or whatever. Well, one time we had a huge brown recluse in the house. I'm sorry, I'm not saving you.
Yeah.
And like that turned into, when I went to go try to kill the spider, he was like, wow, you're really gonna kill the spider?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what about protecting all beings? And I'm like, ah! Like, are you serious? You just verbally abused me yesterday.
Yep.
And now, like, you're shaming me because I'm killing this spider when I, like, have saved every other spider that's been in the house.
Whenever I was over at your house, and he literally called me into the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, hey, look, there's a spider. And I was like, oh, yeah. And it was like big. And then it started walking towards me. And he's like, what would you like me to do with it? And I said, well, in this instance, just go ahead and, kill it and throw it away. Oh, you want me to kill it? But it was so sadistic the way he said it.
Ugh.
And then he like got a smirk on his face. Like, you want me to kill it and just throw it in the trash? And I'm like, and at first, I was just like, yeah, but then, like, after I really, like, thought about it, I'm like, gross.
Yeah.
Like, just, like,
No,
I don't.
No. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like that.
Neither.
So, if you have proof, the more proof you try to show, the more manipulation tactics they use. So, don't ever tell them that you have proof.
Right.
Like, do not. That is that leads to more danger. So if you have proof, keep it to yourself, lock it away, put it somewhere safe.
Yeah.
Hard drive, like literally whatever you can do, send it to a friend, send it in emails to ensure that there are other copies in case your phone gets taken or something, because they do not want to be exposed. And so just be very, very so careful of when you're in these situations. And again, like, I am not giving any type of like advice in that way. These are coming from my own personal experiences, and just precautions that I have learned through my training on narcissistic abuse, of ways that can cause more danger that I wish I would have known at that time and I didn't have the awareness. And so this is really for educational purposes, and like we always want to disclose, like, if you ever feel that you are in a relationship like this or anything, we always recommend that you seek professional help. Find a therapist that is educated on these matters, and like really find someone that can help you directly.
Yeah. And women's shelters are, even if you don't have to like stay in the shelter, they are still a great place to start.
Yes.
As far as being able to find advocates and resources.
Yes, and I know the pride I was so prideful that I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna get out by myself and all of these things. And it's like, you know, if I could have went back and done things differently, I absolutely would have. Yeah. I would have went that route, because it was about mine and my children's safety. And even though I did create a safe environment for them and I did do those things, it was a more difficult path, but, you know, Source provided every step of the way, you know. And I think it's important that, like, if you have somewhere to go, if there is a shelter, if there is a room available, I think it is so important to go.
Yes.
It is so important to go, get out, get to safety, get resources, and get help. And there's no shame either way, because there's not a manual, you know what I mean? There's never any shame in any way that a woman tries to leave or tries to escape or whatever. Like, it's about safety and, like, survival, you know,
like, literally. And it looks different for everybody.
It really does,
but it's all beautiful, especially if you are gaining your freedom.
Yeah, it is,
you know.
Absolutely. So once you recognize it, refrain from sharing any vulnerabilities and fears. And so I think that's, like, one of the biggest things for me when I started to learn the clinical language for these behaviors, reading books, you know, Lundy Bancroft's Why Did He Do That? Podcast I had listened to, all of these different things, being raised, or what is, children, was it emotional, what was it called? Being raised by, like, an emotionally immature parent. I forget exactly what it's called. The Body Keeps Score, like, all of these things that were all compiled together to help me recognize these signs of abuse, you know, things that I was dealing with internally. That is really what helped me gain consciousness and, like, setting boundaries for myself, because then I became aware of what was happening in these conversations, because I didn't have that awareness at that time. And so it really took me sitting back and being the observer and the listener when these things would happen, and just do my best not to engage and allow him to just speak. And when I was able to just do that, I was like, oh, wow. This is what I've been listening to. And it's like, I would try so hard not to laugh sometimes, because I was like, this is insane. Like, none of this makes any sense. You're not saying anything that makes any sense. Like, none of it. Like, why are we talking about this when we're supposed to be talking about budgeting? Like, why are, you know, well, you texted me at the wrong time. Well, when is it a good time to text you about that? Well, it's never a right time to text. Well, texting is the dumbest thing that you could ever do.
That's not a form of communication.
What? Okay.
That's how I speak these days.
Next.
Talking on the phone gives me anxiety.
When am I supposed to talk to you about it? So these are all weapons that will be used against you later on, especially with malignant narcissists. In instances where domestic violence is present, abusers will become violent if they do not get the reaction they are wanting from you, and they will poke the fucking bear. They will poke, and try to get a reaction from you.
Low blows. I can honestly say, like, in a moment of, like, vulnerability right now, like, I have allowed things like that to get to me to the point that I literally explode and I rage. And then it's like, oh my God, look at you, you're acting crazy. And, like, it's like I allowed their words or their actions to push me to that point.
Yeah, which is your body's natural response. Anger is a natural, healthy emotion.
Yes.
Anger is your body's way of sending you signs that my body is being mistreated. There is something that is not right. And when you're not allowed to express that in a healthy way and you don't have a safe space, Like, this is what being triggered is. Like, their purpose is, I'm trying to trigger you into a response so that way I can be like, do you see how you're acting? And when you learn to gain emotional regulation and you are peeping game to the manipulation, when you no longer have those types of emotional reactions anymore, because one, please don't shame yourself. Like,
yeah,
no, there is no shame in that. There's no shame because you reacted accordingly, because that is what it was. Like, you were being provoked, you were being, you know, intimidated, fear, all different types of, you reacted exactly how any person would in those situations. And when you learn to gain emotional self-control and you have awareness and consciousness of their behavior and you don't react in those ways, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And they just like,
but I mean, they're really good at jumping from topic to topic to topic
yes.
to topic to thing to thing to thing. If this one thing that they say doesn't get a reaction, well, let me say this, you know?
Because that's a way for them to lose, they lose control.
Correct.
When they can't get you to emotionally respond anymore, you have taken a piece of their power away. And it's devastating for them. And so they will do and say anything they can to try to get you to do that. Sleep deprivation is one of them.
Yep.
I can't get you to react during the day. I'm going to wake you up in the middle of the night. And I'm going to start conversations with you. So you will be exhausted mentally, physically, and spiritually. You won't be able to do your duties for the next day, take your kids to school, whatever it is. So it's just a continuation.
Yep.
Oh my God, where am I? Oh, it's up there.
I know. I don't.
There you go.
You're great. Would you like that music over? You're good.
Go ahead. Oh.
Relax. Relax.
Oh.
I just want you to know I've been wanting to ask you to hand me that fidget behind you.
Oh, really?
Since our previous recording, but then I was like, don't interrupt. You're okay. I feel like my brain is like at ease now. Thank you.
Yay, you're welcome. Okay, projection. It is not me, it's you. It's not my fault, it's yours. Narcissists are very quick to find faults in others because they cannot accept their own and take accountability. It's an ego defense mechanism. Projection applies not just to narcissists. Projection allows the end of an individual to avoid addressing any discomfort directly. So this is where the disclaimer is. Everybody is capable of projecting. Okay, this is not just a narcissistic trait. You know, when you are operating in a trauma response or you have unhealed wounds, we often project the things that we find uncomfortable in others, and we project our own insecurities, our unhealed wounds onto other people. And when you can recognize those things, that is growth and that is healing, and understand and catch yourself in those moments. Am I projecting in these moments? And that is self-awareness. That's a part of gaining self-awareness. And so when people say terrible, hurtful things to you, I need to understand that they are projecting. There is something inside of them that they see in you that is bringing something up in them that they have not healed, they have not addressed, and it's not your responsibility to heal that. And so that's just a little disclaimer, because that's happened pretty frequently recently, you know, and you just have to release that. The projections of others are not your responsibility to heal. Just your own. Just your own.
Shout that from the rooftops.
Shout it!
Tattoo it across my forehead.
Narcissists will even blame others for their own negative consequences of their behavior. If you ever told a narcissist that they're a narcissist, which is the biggest mistake you can ever make, expect to be told that you're one as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're acting like a narcissist right now.
Yep.
Thank you for telling me.
Yep.
I'm acting like a narcissist because I won't engage in a confrontation.
Be prepared to be told the same thing. And narcissists really like to mirror behaviors. So especially if they're like trying to love bomb or hover you or whatever, they will mirror your behavior. So say if you're into reading books and you're meditating and you're doing self-healing and you're going to therapy, they will mirror your behavior in your language. in an attempt to make you think that they're doing the same thing and they're healing.
They may not go to therapy, though. That's usually because
they don't want to be exposed.
Correct. And they will only speak with somebody that they feel like they can manipulate and distort the the reality. Thank you. And so if they can get people to believe them, then those are the people that they want to talk to.
Correct.
Because they're not going to be honest. But if people are aware of that kind of behavior, and then they're able to be like, I don't think you're being honest with me, then,
They surround themselves with like-minded individuals that they can also manipulate or use. Their relationships are very self-serving and conditional. They do not have, many narcissists do not have long-standing relationships or deep, meaningful relationships because everything is superficial. It's self-serving. It's what can you do for me? What is this person providing for me? They can buy me a car because they work at a dealership. They can get me a discount somewhere. They can get me supplements or whatever it is.
It's like a status.
Play video games. They provide a video game friendship. Like whatever it is, they're not meaningful. They're not vulnerable. They're very surface level conversations in relationships. So blame shifting involves character assassinations, malicious intent, and shame. They will often use situations as an opportunity for emotional abuse. They have no regard of how their behavior impacts others, but they will often call other people selfish all of the time. They will often call others out on being angry and deflect from their own behavior. Projection can cause the victim to develop severe low self-esteem and enter judgment. Projective identification is when the victim when the victim accepts what the abuser is saying and internalizes it as their truth. And so projective identification is when a victim accepts something that the narcissist has said to them and accept it as their truth. You're not smart, you're lazy, you're not healthy, you can't do anything, you're fat, you're not a good mother, whatever it is that they can say to put you down, to make you feel less than, that is what keeps you as a source of supply. That's what keeps you under the umbrella of control, and that's how they maintain power.
And it all starts with, as far as for yourself, say you are making cookies and you add all the ingredients but the flour. Oh my God, I'm so dumb. I forgot to add the flour.
Yeah, you start saying that stuff out loud.
I'm so stupid. Yeah. I can't believe I forgot to add the flour. And it's that negative talk. That's whenever you realize that those things are actually embedded in you. It's part of you knows it's not true, but then at the same time, it's it's just there. And so that's what you're supposed to say about yourself, And it's instead of just being oh, I just can't believe I forgot the flour. Well, here we go. Let's add it now.
Right.
It always has to be name calling to yourself.
Right.
I'm so
negative
dumb.
Self-talk.
Yeah.
Negative
I'm
self-talk.
so dumb. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I forgot to do that. It's the main ingredient in making these cookies, and I'm so dumb. I'm such an idiot.
There was a time where our laundry lights had been out for months, literally months. I was doing everything in the house, from unclogging the garbage disposal to changing the filters, taking both cars to go get their oils changed, tires rotated, every single thing I did. He didn't do any of that. I was a single parent, and I'm oh my God, we've got one light, I can hardly see to do my laundry for months, and he was never going to do anything to replace it. So I was okay, let me go do it. So I got up there and opened up the lights to see what kind of lights I needed, and they're the long ones, and so I went to the store to go get lights, and I was I'm gonna go buy a ladder because I hate going back and forth to my parents and having to borrow the ladder. And so I was let me just finally buy one so we can have one of our own. And I bought the wrong size. In my mind, I was I need an 8-foot ladder, and I bought one that's could only reach to 8 feet. So it wasn't tall enough because we had like a high ceiling. So it wasn't tall enough. And I had leaned the lights on the ladder, next to the ladder. And I forgot that the lights were leaning on the ladder when I went to move the ladder, and the lights shattered all over the floor. And his response was to come and yell and verbally abuse me in front of our children. He grabbed the ladder and slammed the ladder down in my face, and he was like, "You're so fucking stupid." And he was like, "How could you fucking buy the wrong size? How could you forget that the lights were next to the ladder, Maralen?" And he slammed it in my face. He's like, "This is the same fucking height as you." And I was just like in tears at that point, and like taking the broom and trying to sweep. He's like, "Now there's fucking glass everywhere." And he was like, "Someone's gonna get hurt," and just continued. And it was so devastating for me, because I remember even that evening after I cleaned up the mess, I went in the bathroom and I was just like sobbing, and my daughter was like 5 or 4 at that time, and she came in and she was singing Doc McStuffins to me. And oh, that was a really difficult moment, because I didn't want that to be our relationship as mother and daughter. I didn't want her to be comforting me and consoling me and regulating my emotions. And that was such a hard moment for me, because it was like, it was so tender. And she was like, "Are you upset because daddy was yelling at you?" You know, and that was just such a hard moment for me, because then I had realized then, like, I'm stuck. What am I going to do? And I truly felt like I had no way out in that moment, because I wasn't working. You know, my health was like severely declining during that time. I had another surgery that I was going to have on my arm, because I had nerve damage from the car accident I was in. And like, what was I going to do? I can't work. I can't braid hair. You know what I mean? And so like, I felt like how Alex felt in The Maid when she returned, and just sinking into the couch and like disassociating so hard, to where it just felt like I was in a hole of like, I remember just wanting to like die in that moment.
I remember this incident.
And I didn't want to actually die. Like, I didn't want to die. I just wanted to be free of him.
Right.
I just wanted to be free. I wanted my children and I to be free. And I knew that like I had to keep living for my kids, because I knew I had to get us out. And like, if I didn't have them, like, I truly, to be honest, like, I don't know if I could have made it through that. Like, and that's just in all transparency. If I would have never had kids with him, they are what kept me alive and pushing through that relationship, because I knew that I had to get out. Yeah. And I just remember times like laying in the bathtub and floating, and just like wanting to like drown, you know, because I was just so like, I was so exhausted. I just was so tired. I couldn't get any peace, you know, and then I felt like I couldn't be the best mom for my kids, you know, and so like there were so many conflicting emotions all the time, because I wanted to show up, but then I was so chronically sick all the time. I was always in bed. I was always having migraines. I wasn't able to be present in the ways that I wanted to, but I knew that I was doing the best that I could.
Yeah.
You know, and like for me, that was just like one of the hardest times in my life of just like wanting things to end. And it brought me back to like high school of just like wanting the pain to stop. I didn't want to die. I wanted to continue to exist and have this human experience, but I just didn't want to suffer anymore. You know, like that's such a hard feeling of like, I don't want to die. I don't want to leave my friends. I don't want to leave the earth.
Yeah.
I just want to stop suffering. You know what I mean? Like I want the pain that is being inflicted upon me to stop. And that was really hard.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I understand that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real hard place to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't mean that you don't want to be here and experience the beautiful things that, you know, life offers. But it's just how you're feeling in that moment. Like, it's like you're emotionally and mentally feeling like you are drowning.
Mm-hmm.
You are emotionally and mentally feeling like you cannot breathe and that you're not going to catch a break and that it's never going to end. Like, you don't see the light.
Well, and being neurodivergent on top of that, like not knowing that I had autism too.
Right.
These were autistic meltdowns a lot of times too,
Yeah.
where my nervous system was so dysregulated that I was associating a lot of these experiences with panic attacks when they were literally autistic meltdowns that would last hours.
Yeah.
We're not talking about 15 to 20 minutes like a panic attack. Yeah. These were hours. Body shakes, shivering, having to stay under the weighted blanket. Like, I mean, my chest would be so heavy. Like, I mean, I went through months having to wear a heart monitor.
I remember.
You know? And like, not understanding that my relationship of the chronic brutality that I was living in every single day was causing these health issues.
Right.
You know? Like, because I have not had a migraine. I had migraines since I was, I believe, 16 or 17 years old.
I was going to say for
a long time. I missed a lot of school because of migraines and terrible periods. But like, I have not had a migraine since I left my abuser. I've had one headache, literally, and it was like a sinus headache.
Yeah.
But I swear, like, I have not had a migraine, and they were debilitating, like 3 days at a time. I was seeing a neurologist. I had to get shots. I was trying everything to the point where I got medical Botox, like, because they were so severe.
Yeah.
And I have not had one since.
Yep.
That's a testament.
It is a huge testament.
I got diagnosed with obstructive asthma at age 30. At age 30, I have not taken an inhaler in 2 years. I just took one today because I have bronchitis, but to help me breathe. But I was on like 3 different inhalers, man, at age 30, you know, and just like not associating any of this. But then I would get told it's my fucked up genetics and my fucked up genes that I got from my parents that give me all this fucked up shit, you know, that I'm passing to my kids. And
it has nothing to do with the chronic stress that I'm under. That is literally weakening my immune system and causing my body to not function correctly.
No, but it creates disease, you know, this living in an environment that is full of chronic stress. You know, we talk about this all the time, but our bodies are naturally created to be able to handle short-term stress. Short levels of releases of cortisol, and then we come back down and our body's able to regulate. But when our bodies are in a chronic state of stress, when stress is your environment, your body goes into a state of hypervigilance, and then it goes into fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn. Okay, I was the fawn. I was like no, I won't say anything. I won't do anything. I'm going to shrink myself. I'm going to people please. And then you go into survival mode, you know, and that's where you get all these posture issues. You see me touching myself all the time because, like, my body is healing from years and decades of chronic abuse.
Because your body will literally naturally start going like this.
Yes.
Because it's trying to protect itself.
Yep.
You will find, you know, that you might even, whenever you go to sleep, like, you roll over on your side and you, like, because your body is trying to protect itself. Right. Like, and you're like, oh, it's the most comfortable position. Yeah, it's the most comfortable position because your body feels like it's safe or protected.
Right. You cover in that heart chakra. You've got to expand and open up the chest, and, like, that's hard, you know what I mean? Yeah. And for neurodivergent people,
you feel exposed.
You do. And then for people that are neurodivergent, like, we naturally, most of us have connective tissue disorder too. So when you have that on top of all of these developmental, you know, symptoms or health conditions that were developed as a result of being in chronic, you know, relationships, dangerous relationships, violence relationships, or whatever, that just adds on to what you already have. Yeah. Like, I started having health issues really young. Like,
I was going to say, like, you know, I was in my early 20s the first time I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And, you know, also in my early 20s, whenever they told me that I had RA, like, and I mean young. Yeah. And they, like, literally to where they told me that, like, I might be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 40. And I'm like, I am not, you know, like, I am not accepting this. Yes. You know, degenerative disc disease in my back. Like, things that you hear of people having, but usually whenever they're older. And here I am, like, barely out of high school. Yes. Like, literally in my early 20s. And it's like, what in the world is this? But then I had kind of really started working on my healing. I was, like, you know, I was single, all of that stuff. And, like, my physical health really started to improve. Right. Like, I really, like, felt it. I wasn't in as much pain or anything like that. And then, you know, get back into another relationship, and it's, my hips hurt so bad for days on end, months on end, like, to where it's like, oh my gosh, like, I cannot walk. Sitting still hurts, walking hurts, standing up hurts. Like, there's, like, nothing, you know. And it's like, if that literally goes to show, like, how much stress really does play on your body.
Alcohol, cigarettes, anything else, but stress is, like, the number one cause of any disease, whether it's cancer or anything. And these are the physical manifestations that show up in the body from trauma. It gets stored in our tissues and our fibers and creates illness and disease. That's why it's called dis-ease. It's dis-ease in the body. And it creates these diseases like fibro and RA, which I was diagnosed with a couple years ago. And these are the invisible illnesses that nobody can figure out what is wrong. You know, and RA is autoimmune, so it's not just subjected to bones. It can attack any organ in the body. And people are like, where do these come from? You know, but nobody is willing to talk about emotions or the energy systems and trauma, you know what I'm saying? Because they can't make money like that. You know what I'm saying? We're going to put a Band-Aid on it. We're going to give you tramadol. We're going to give you morphine. We're going to give you all of these things.
We're going to have you come in, you know, once every 3 to 6 months to get, you know, injections in your hips that at first they work, but then they don't. And, you know, then it's like you're going every week to get these injections so you can get a little bit of relief, but then there's not any, but you're spending hundreds of dollars to try to get relief that no longer works.
Yep. I had, like, at 18, I had a tumor in my left breast developed that turned out to be a benign tumor, but it was like the size of a baseball. And I was just like, it developed so quickly. Like, it was literally like I felt, you know, like when your breast tissue is growing, that's cute. when your breast tissue is growing, you know, you can have larger ducts as well, like, and you can have thicker breast tissue. And so sometimes with women that have thicker breast tissue, I actually went through this with my second oldest. We thought she had like a cyst in her breast, but it turned out to just be her breast tissue is really, really thick. And, I mean, within a month's time, like it grew from like the size of like a grape to like the size of a baseball. And like, I could just grab my breast and like, it was just so hard and tender. And, you know, I didn't have any awareness at that time. Like all of the stuff that I had been through with my parents and my mother, you know, these were physical manifestations of my body living the majority of my childhood in stress, you know, and it being on my left side, which is your divine feminine energy as well. Like this is my mother's side, you know what I mean? And, I had to have surgery. And then like 2 weeks later, I ended up having like severe pain in my stomach, gallbladder stones. If I would have known then, like you can naturally fix those things, like, but their response is like, you gotta take it out. You gotta have surgery. You know? So like here I am at 18, having 2 surgeries back to back, you know, having a tumor removed and then having my gallbladder removed, you know, and then it just progressed. I got diagnosed with scoliosis and was always back and forth at the doctor for like back problems and then my migraines and then fibro, RA, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like all of these,
yeah,
you know.
Don't forget that cough that you had for years.
Oh my God, for years. Like literally since I was in junior high, like I had a chronic cough and like, it started out like I had chronic bronchitis for like 2 years. And then, last year, like my cough just like literally like disappeared.
Yeah.
And with the help of therapy and like Reiki, I was able to understand too, like when you develop a cough like that, it's a part of your body's nervous system telling you that you are feeling suffocated. And so every relationship that I was in, I was feeling suffocated. I couldn't express myself. So like that throat chakra is like restricted. It's restricting your airways. And last year was like the first year that like it literally had just like, and it was such a just a dry cough. Like it was just a cough that I just had all the time.
Yeah.
And so this is like the first time that I've like really coughed, because I have like a bronchitis or upper respiratory or something. But yeah. I've been cough free for like over a year now.
I do also think that right now in this moment, our weather situation can't make up its mind what it wants to do. And then it's like sweater weather in the morning.
Sweater
and
weather.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather. Sweater weather. Sweater weather.
So what weather.
So what weather.
I would never worship a god that would send someone to an eternal lake of fire to be burned forever for the simple fact of non-belief, when that deity knows what it would take to convince every single person on this planet. That is cruel, it is inhumane, it is not kind, it is not generous, and that is not a god worthy of worship.
What's more, it would be damning the vast majority of everyone who's ever existed for not believing in him for a set of rules that he created.
I think the historical Christian position is that the gift of the invitation that God gives to the people that he made is so generous and came at such a high price to him.
A high price, he gave up a weekend.
He
gave up a weekend.
Right.
He was God before.
Yeah.
He was God during, and he's God now. He gave up a weekend. If I knew right now that I could go off and die and then not die, where's the gift in that? Satan represents to me taking responsibility for your own actions. It says to thirst for knowledge, for understanding, to understand that man is an animal, sometimes worse than those around, but an animal nonetheless. It's a platitude of all religions to say, I respect your religion, I respect your religion, I respect your religion, but you're all saying, oh, I respect your right to have that religion, but then internally you're saying, Allah is the only God, Jesus is not God. Vishnu, Krishna, these are gods, these are deities. Jesus Christ is the only way. He is the answer. He is the only one. I'm right, you're all wrong, but I'm going to be nice about it.
You guys just have to know what we're talking about.
You know what we're talking about. I love sweater.
I can't even say it right.
The weather's turned.
Oh, sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Oh, God, I was...
Finally, sweater weather. Sweater weather.
It's about time.
It's about time.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Oh,
Finally, sweater weather.
God, sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Sweater weather. Give me some coffee and we can have sweater weather.
Sweater weather.
Pumpkin spice.
Yeah.
Everything nice.
But
Yeah.
anyways, and the way our bodies are set up,
Yeah.
we're really similar in that way.
We have like verbatim like the same diagnosis and like it's crazy. And one thing I want to say is like I've learned like you can, you know, accept and believe like a diagnosis that you're giving, but like you don't have to accept the prognosis from that.
Yeah.
And that was really important for me because like for many years, like I don't mean to get sidetracked because we're talking about gaslighting, but like for many years, I like that became my identity, you know, of like these illnesses that I had. And it's like I didn't know how to be anything outside of that because it took over so much of my life. You know, it prevented me from doing things that I was able to do. And, you know, now like I'm on disability. And so like even that's like was a very hard thing for me to like have to accept that I'm a person that's disabled and has limitations, and like that's not a bad thing, you know, and it's not something to be shameful about. It's reality.
And it doesn't mean that you can't do anything.
No, and disabilities look different on everyone. We're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah.
But you know, I really had to like get out of that and say that like I am capable of doing things, and this is not my sole identity. I have these things, they're very real. And even my therapist like had to remind me of those things of like, you know, it took years for your body to develop these illnesses and things. And plus you've been in a car accident, like you have nerve damage and stuff. And like, you have to remember that what your body has is very real. And so it's going to take years for your body to heal and repair itself. So you have to be patient, you know, and it does get frustrating because you're just like, oh, I just want to have a day like where I'm not in pain. And then when you do have, you know, really good days where you're able to move and you're able to do things, people don't understand with chronic illness. Like you see us out and like we're dancing or like we're going on a hike or going on a road trip or whatever. And it's like the recovery that has to come from that is like really difficult because there's like literally just from our podcast on Saturday, I mean, I spent like the next day, like in bed, like all day, just recovering from a verbal exchange.
Yeah.
You know, and so like it can be very emotionally and physically taxing for people that are struggling with chronic illnesses and have very sensitive nervous systems. And so, you know, it's always looked at in a very shameful light, very judgmental light, for people that have disabilities and are looked at like, oh my God, well you're roller skating or whatever. And it's like, yeah, because my body allowed me to do that day.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do it, but my body ends up paying for it.
My favorite is you don't look like you're disabled.
Yeah. You don't look autistic.
Yeah.
You don't look like you have ADHD.
What does it look like? Please tell me. A narwhal.
Oh, I like
I
narwhals.
know.
They're so cute.
They are so cute. But yes.
Warty.
So let's jump back on here.
Back to gaslighting.
We're about to wrap this up. ADHD.
Here we are.
Gaslighting. So we know it's a form of emotional abuse in which one party manipulates another party into doubting their thoughts, feelings, judgment, perceptions, and memories. The goal of gaslighting is to create doubt, undermine self-confidence, and make the gaslightee feel unsure of themselves. So chronic gaslighting can cause victims to doubt their sense of reality or sanity. So we talked about the term gaslighting developed from Patrick Hamilton's 1938 play, The Gaslight. So it was a play that turned into a movie later on. And it follows this married couple. So shortly after their wedding, I want to kind of dive deep into like the actual movie for those of haven't seen it, Paula begins to notice strange things, like the gas lights in the house flicker, items go missing, she hears strange sounds. Gregory convinces Paula that she's imagining everything and makes her believe she's going mad. The purpose of gaslighting is to undermine the gaslightee's self-confidence, autonomy, and assertiveness. The gaslightee becomes confused, disoriented, and disempowered. Gaslighting coerces victims into accepting the gaslighter's reality at the expense of their own. The gaslighter becomes the primary, only source of truth in relationship, especially when you have been isolated as a part of coercive control. You don't have any outside relationships. Say for a lot of times, you know, you have too many friends, you have too many people that need you, Maralen, you have too many people, you always have a birthday to go to, or, you know, something like that. And so there's that guilt. And then it became to where the majority of the people that I would have to spend time with were his coworkers. So it has to be his friends, people that he chooses, you know,
and then
so that he can remain in a good life.
Who you gonna call? You don't have nobody.
Right.
You don't have nobody.
Yeah, you don't have nobody.
Like whenever just
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, I had too many
friends.
Too many.
So shortly after the wedding, oh, I just read that part.
Sorry.
Okay, in emotionally abusive or narcissistic relationships, gaslighting is used to maintain the abusive party's sense of power and redirect blame onto the victims. And so now I want to give you some common gaslighting phrases. So these are used in like romantic or intimate partner relationships. Lying. I never said that. You're making that up. You're trying to make me look bad. Why are you always trying to portray me as the monster? Why are you always trying to paint a bad picture of me? Why are you always saying that I did these things? Why are you holding on to the past? That wasn't me. That was the past me. It's all in your head.
Okay, and I do kind of want to say, because I do say I never said that, but that's not to gaslight. It's because I'm trying to be manipulated into believing that I said something that I didn't.
Well, that's different.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
but I just want to, like, you know, because for sometimes, you know, people who can get confused about, like, you know, but I use that phrase. Does that mean that I'm, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, no. Like,
Yeah.
if you know that you did not say something, but they're like trying to continually say, oh yeah, you said this, like this goes back to that butterfly bee example that I was giving. Like, you know, I never said that I didn't like bees. I just said that I really loved butterflies.
You knowing that you never said something
and then
is
saying,
different,
right,
than someone doing or saying something and then going back and denying
like
that they ever did or said that.
Correct. Okay.
That's different.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways.
Dismissing and invalidating. You're remembering that wrong. You're reading too much into this. Are you writing it down? So you just want to write everything down because you just want to make it seem like you're doing everything perfect. You're overreacting. You need to let that go. Why are you still holding on? You need to let it go already. It wasn't that big of a deal. Common gaslighting phrases in romantic or intimate partner relationships in regards to infidelity. This is a huge one. If you were meeting my sexual needs, I'd have no reason to talk to other people. Okay? If you were doing what I was requiring of you in the bedroom, if you would just let me have anal sex with you, if you would just let me do this to you, I promise it'll feel good. Well, what do we have in common sexually? What do we have in common? I never promised I wouldn't see other people. It was just sex. What is the big deal? Okay, and many times narcissistic abusers will have affairs. They always have another supply. Trust me, if it's always, there's never a doubt. Okay, they always have another source of supply. You are the main one, especially if you have children with a narcissist. You are the main source of supply, but there is always another. And they will have affairs, and they will admit their affairs. And many times when they do, it is not until 2 years later that they admit that they've had an affair. What are you going to do about it? You can't do anything about it. What are you going to do? It's 2 years later, you know?
You're really going to be upset for something that happened 2 years ago? Yeah, because I just found out about it.
Yep.
Well, you got to let it go. It happened in the past.
It happened in the past. Yep. 2 hours ago, it's in the past.
Yep.
Veiled or overt threats. You expect me to walk on eggshells to make you happy? You're going to ruin this relationship if you can't get over this. If this is who you really are, I don't know if I want to be with you. And that's a very common phrase, especially when you start to set boundaries and have an awareness of their behavior, because you're no longer tolerating, you are no longer giving emotional reactions to their behavior.
Oh, here you go, trying to set boundaries again.
Yep, they will, oh my gosh, try to tear that bridge down. They can't stand that. And so they will say, you've changed. Yes, thank you. I have.
Yep, I'm trying to.
That's what we're supposed to do as humans, is evolve. You know,
but your demeanor's supposed to stay the same.
Yep.
The things that used to be funny are still supposed to be funny, and they're supposed to always be funny, because people don't ever really change.
But they do.
But they do.
But they do.
But, but I've changed, but in a negative way, because I no longer find...
Because you're going to therapy.
Right.
Because you're working on yourself.
Yep.
Yep.
And since, and the common thing about therapy is, since you've been going to therapy, we've been having more issues.
Oh, yep. Yep, trying to make it seem like you going to therapy is a problem.
Yep.
It is, because it's a problem for them, because they don't want you to know about their behavior. They don't want you to know that you're being manipulated.
Yep.
They don't want you to leave them. So if you get educated and you're talking to the therapist about your relationship, they want to get in on that. They want to manipulate your therapy sessions. They will try to get in on that so they can manipulate the therapist.
Yep. But then whenever they go, and then the therapist is wise enough to see through that and then calls them out, then it's like, did you hear how your therapist spoke to me?
Yep. She's a bitch. I'm never going back.
Can you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
And then the things that she's putting in your head.
Yeah.
She looked me in my face and said that if she told you to leave, you would.
God. Silly billies.
Yeah.
Pony boys. Gaslighting in family relationships. It often emphasizes guilt and shame. It displaces responsibility for the gaslighter's thoughts, feelings, and actions onto the gaslightee. Weaponizes shame to make gaslightee feel like they have wronged a loved one. Discourages autonomy and assertiveness. Prevalent in narcissistic family relationships. Gaslighting in family relationships. Guilt tripping to coerce compliance. Okay, this is huge in dysfunctional family relationships where they're full of narcissists. This was very common with his mother, with him, with his ex-wife, and with the children. The children were always so coerced to comply with every demand. You have to keep the abuse in the family. You can't talk about it. Preventing the children from seeking therapy. What do you have to be depressed about? Why are you talking to this person? Withholding things, withholding love as a punishment. If you don't come here and do this, I won't buy you this prom dress. I won't give you this $200. If you don't sign this piece of paper, I won't buy this Christmas. I'm taking all of this stuff back to the store right now. Like, that is a very manipulative, emotionally abusive tactic that these family systems use, particularly with children, to get them to comply to their emotional needs and to coerce them into not having body autonomy, because children are made to be extensions of their parents, of the narcissist. They are made to fulfill the narcissist's needs, and they're not allowed to be assertive. If they have a voice and stand up for any mistreatment or behavior or set a boundary, they are looked at as, you're disloyal. Look at you being disrespectful. How could you talk to me that way? Like, And that's how we as children that have experienced these dynamics grow up into these types of relationships, because that is what was modeled.
And that's what we think is normal.
That is what we think is normal.
It's like, oh, everybody goes through this. This
Yes.
is what it's supposed to look like, you know.
Yes.
It's okay if I'm mistreated, because, I mean, everybody does that every once in a while.
Right.
You know, nobody's perfect. And
Nobody's
we gotta
perfect.
look past all the flaws.
Don't you see what all I did for you? All the stuff that I bought for you, things that I don't ask for.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, but don't buy things for me if you're going to hold it over my head later.
Right.
And don't take it away
Mm-hmm.
if you bought it for me and you said it's mine. You know?
Right. Yep.
Like, what? So, guilt tripping, denial of hurtful words or actions, blaming gaslighting for others' emotional responses or actions. So, say you have a parent or a grandparent-child relationship, and what is the parent or grandparent is the narcissist, and they blame the child's they blame the child for the adult's emotional response. And that's very, very common. So then the child learns to feel such guilt and shame,
Mm-hmm.
and they are then responsible for that person's emotions.
When you act like that, that makes mommy feel so sad.
If you wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have said that to you. I wouldn't have acted like that. I wouldn't have cut the cell phone bill off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, accusing the gaslighting of cruel and selfish motivations, like telling a child that they're selfish because they're setting boundaries. You don't love me. You know, all I've done for you, and this is how you treat me, and this is what I get, tends to trigger people-pleasing behavior by gaslighting. And that's exactly how children grow up and learn to people-please and become people-pleasers as an adult, is by this type of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Gaslighting and social media. Sexist comments towards women. If you didn't want that kind of attention, you wouldn't have posted those pictures. Oh my God, if I had $1. Oh my God. Real women have curves. Body positivity is glorifying obesity. Shut up. We just gonna say that.
Yep.
We're not doing that. We are not body shaming.
No.
No.
Everybody is beautiful.
Everybody is beautiful. It ain't your body. It ain't your business. Toxic masculinity messages towards men. Man up. Okay? We're getting into like men a little bit, like, because this is a thing. Like, toxic shame towards men having emotions, being vulnerable, being empathetic, being sensitive.
Weak.
Quit being weak. You're soft. You're so
Yeah.
soft. Don't let the
toughen up.
don't let the feminazis emasculate you. Boys don't cry. You know, these are all statements that have been said to young boys and men, you know, to create shame and prevent them from being their truest selves. You know, boys and men are compassionate. They are capable of being empathetic and sensitive and kind and loving and nurturing and giving. These are all qualities that men and boys can possess. Like,
Yep.
they are capable of those things.
Because it's healthy to feel those things.
It is healthy to feel those things, yes. Gaslighting and social media. Influencers can easily create an appearance that does not match reality. Challenges that imply that anyone should be able to succeed and discount real barriers. So that is really common, and I've seen that with a lot of spiritual people that I had followed, like on Instagram or whatever, and they use their platform to create shame, and like it happens so quick, but not understanding that like not everybody has those same resources or opportunities, and that's where like systematic abuse comes into play. And so it's easier to say those things but not realizing that there are barriers in place that do prevent people from getting the help that they need.
Right.
If you toxic positivity, if you haven't found your hustle during the pandemic, you know, you didn't have it to begin with, there's no excuse not to be fit. If you're not working out right now, like, your mental health is shit. Choose happy. Like, and I've said choose happy before, because I believe that like you have the opportunity to, one, be joyful and choose happiness, like in the midst of your suffering, meaning like you are allowed to experience happiness and joy in the midst of your suffering. and don't ever let anybody guilt you otherwise.
Right.
You are allowed to have a good time. You're allowed to laugh, even though you are feeling so much pain, you know? And like, it's not as easy as 1, 2, 3. I have used toxic positivity with myself to try to get myself out of feeling certain emotions.
Yep.
And it took me a while to realize that's what I was doing. And I'm like, you know, I can say affirmations all day, but if I don't allow myself to feel the emotions that I need to feel, and I just use toxic positivity to mask those emotions, they're going to be stuck and stagnant.
Yeah.
I need to move that energy, whether it's through dance or whatever, you know what I mean, and get those emotions out. Gaslighting in fitness world, portrayed as desirable versus undesirable. So you see pictures all the time comparing women. Like, that's how we've been compared our entire life. Like, I was compared the entire time during our marriage. You know, with his new supply, with other women, comparing me to porn stars, other women you see on the streets, you know, comparing my body to other women's bodies all the time. I was either, you know, not thick enough or not skinny enough or whatever it was, always comparing. And even told me if he was to see me now, this was like a couple years ago, and he first met me in the way I look now, he told me that he would not approach me, and he was like, but I'm sure someone out there will love you, and like tried to God, I was just like, oh, okay, go ahead and tell that.
I remember I randomly got sent a picture of Britney Spears.
Wow.
And then it said, I just think that you look so much better than her. And I'm like, why is it a compare game?
What?
Like, what? Like,
so gross.
I don't understand.
No.
You know, or like sending me pictures of like women in like different lingerie outfits, and it's like, maybe you can wear something like this, maybe you can wear something like that, and I'm just like, nah, bro. Like, that's not me. I like moo-moos and things that don't touch me.
And what's crazy is, in my relationship, because my ex-husband was Black, there was so much internal and external shame towards Black women. And so I was always being compared, like, oh, you're like my little snow bunny. Mm-hmm. And like, it's something that I should be prideful of, that you chose me.
My ex,
you know what I'm saying?
Literally used to say that.
And I hated that. And like, mm-hmm. I hated that so bad, because he would say comments even in front of our children, my beautiful, beautiful Black children, and this is what you think of Black women. And it just disgusted me, because I'm like, absolutely not. And I remember just shutting that down anytime he ever said anything to me, and I would hype it up. Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, you know, like, because I'm obnoxious like that. Yeah, you know,
like, because for me, like, anytime, you know, somebody comes on TV and, you know, they're like, oh my God, what are they wearing? Or, you know, look at them, or, judging. You know, can't believe blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I think that they are beautiful. Yes. I would wear that outfit.
Yes.
I would, you know, I would do that. Like, look at them with that confidence, like, wearing such a gorgeous outfit. Absolutely. Like, I love that. And mm-hmm. then, you know,
yeah.
Why are you always trying to start an argument? Who's trying to argue with you?
That happened to me one time. He was commenting on the neighbor and was saying that the neighbor was overweight, and I would be a good addition to his life. I think I could really help him out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he started talking about his body, and I'm like, no one asked you for help. Why do you think that someone needs your help and assistance? Like,
because you're uncomfortable with yourself, you yes. just automatically assume that other people are uncomfortable with themselves.
And that they should be. Like, yes, that they should be made to feel insecure about their bodies, you know? So gaslighting, you know, in the fitness industry, And fearing how we age is purely a matter of choice and entirely within our control. So age is a huge thing. We're always made to have to look like we're still 12 years old, you know, aging creams and all this stuff. And it's not knocking anybody who uses those things. It's just how society makes women feel like it's a very terrible thing to age, and it's like, this is a part of the human experience, is aging.
Right.
You
It's
modify,
a natural process.
yeah, you do whatever you want with your body. I support you, girl.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we don't have to do that. Like,
Yeah.
we can support people making choices for their body and what makes them feel good, and that should just be the end of it.
Right.
Like, we shouldn't have to compare of like,
because how does what they do with their body affect me?
it doesn't.
It doesn't. And so if that's what they choose to do and that's what makes them feel good, go for it.
Absolutely.
I am here for you.
Ignores factors like genetics, illness, life events, body composition, social supports, mental health, access to money, gym space, training, adequate nutrition, and to build muscle. And so that was very common with me and like my chronic illnesses, like being shamed for, you know, like not wanting to go to the gym all the time like he would do. I have my other ways of wanting to work out. I love to dance. I love to hike. I love to walk, bike. You know, I don't like to be in the gym, and that's just me. But
Yeah.
I would be wanting to play around in there, you know, because that's what I would do when I go to the gym. And I like, you're not taking this fucking serious, and I can't work out with you, and blah blah. Like, I'm here to be serious. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not here to be here for 2 hours. Like, I can't. Like, I'm already thinking about like a snow cone that I'm trying to get on the way home.
Yep.
Gaslighting and communal trauma. Gaslighting is particularly damaging to already disenfranchised groups. Gaslighting harms minority and disempowered groups by suppressing, undermining, and invalidating the voices of those with less power: Black, Indigenous, persons of color, LGBTQ plus individuals, disabled and chronically ill individuals, and women.
Dude, everything is like a race thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that Asian person, that Mexican person, that, you know, this. And it's like,
Everything is like
why?
compared with different groups, different ethnicities, and you know, gaslighting is very targeted within the Black community, Indigenous and LGBTQ plus, and this is where we talk about systematic abuse and gaslighting as a whole in these systems that were not built to protect these individuals. They weren't built to help these individuals thrive, and that's what we should be doing as a community. And so when people ignore those real issues and that pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality and everybody has the same opportunities kind of thing, it's not like that. And we'll get into that whenever we talk about the failure to protect laws of the disproportionately incriminated Black women that are in jails because of failure to protect, which Black people only make up 8% of the population, and 19% of Black women are incarcerated for failure to protect laws. So why? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we will absolutely get into all of that. There's so many things, you know, under this, you know, like we were saying, under this umbrella that, you know, they need to be talked about because people need to be made aware.
Yeah.
And
because with awareness comes understanding, and with understanding comes compassion and grace. And we can have compassion and grace and understand why someone may be the way that they are, why this system is this way or whatever. But at the end of the day, when we have that awareness and we offer that compassion and grace, that doesn't negate the due diligence of accountability.
Correct.
We have to have accountability. And we can try to understand someone's trauma. We can try to understand someone's experience in childhood and all day long. And understanding is great because that's a part of science. That gives us a lens of attachment issues and behavioral problems and systematically and generationally how we get here. But we have to start being proactive and moving forward. Okay, we understand this now, but what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
What
And
are we
it
going to
doesn't,
do?
and and having an understanding of, you know, trauma for, you know, your abuser doesn't excuse that behavior. And that becomes a common misconception. Oh, well,
that's what I did.
Yeah, like, I mean, he, you know,
I don't even know if what I'm being told is true.
Yeah,
you know,
they experienced this whenever they were younger, and, you know, so now I understand. So now if I can just love them a little bit harder, you know, a little bit more, then, you know, that we can move past it together. They don't care.
And Lundy Bancroft, who has a book called Why Did He Do That? He spent his life's work surrounding studying abusers, and would also interview the victims of abuse. And many of the studies that he did, there was one where abusers, one thing that is common, they will tell their victims that they were sexually abused as a child. Mine also told me that as well. And when he had them take a lie detector test and ask them the same question, it was actually false. And so many abusers will lie about their childhood traumas to get you to gain sympathy for them, to feel sorry for them, so that way you will excuse their bad behavior. And it continues to, you know, filtrate, you know what I mean, their chronic brutality. Because I hate to say enable when it comes to victims, because I don't feel like victims enable abuse, because they are victims. But I feel like when people have a awareness, which is like the flying monkeys of like narcissistic groups, like those are enablers of abusive behavior. You know exactly what's going on. You know exactly the brutality that is happening, and you're making excuses. You are participating in it. You're harassing. You're going along with it, whatever it is, to keep the abuser from having accountability.
Yeah. And then once the abuser like picks up on the fact that like they can give you a sad story from their childhood, and then like you'll basically completely forget about their actions that they just displayed, you know. And then it'll get to a point to where they can be like, I'm really, you know, I'm sorry, you know, it's just stuff from my childhood that's coming up. And then they'll beat you to the you know, it's like that becomes like a really common, you know, thing that just
so none of that negates behavior. And that's the conversation that we are starting, is we can have compassion, grace, and understanding. But with that comes being proactive. And what are we going to do? Are we going to start holding abusers accountable for their behavior, their violence? Are we going to continue as a system systematically enable that behavior and not hold abusers accountable, and allow them to continue to get away with harming, you know, people, partners, children, and committing crimes, like whatever it is? When is enough going to be enough? And so I can have all the love and compassion in the world, but I don't tolerate that shit.
Right.
We are not tolerating it. We are not endorsing it. We are speaking out against these things that need to change. Our laws need to change. And I hope that having these discussions and talking about this stuff openly will create change, where we can get laws changed and legislators to come in, because clearly what we're doing as a state and as, you know, a whole collectively is not enough. There are people that are doing the work, amazing work. There's amazing laws that are being made in California even right now. And I think collectively, if we can all just get there, you know what I mean, by just continuing to speak out, women telling their stories and being vulnerable, these laws will be changed.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you. And before we go, once again, I just really want to give the
go ahead.
National Domestic Violence Hotline.
Yeah.
That is 1-800-799 7233. Again, it is 1-800-799-7233, and lines are open 24/7.
24/7.
Please do not hesitate to call anytime if you just need someone to talk to.
Yes.
Help is available, resources are out there.
Yep.
And we're here for you too.
Yes, we are. We love you.
We love
Thank
you.
you. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
Next time.
Adios.
See you next time. Thank you.